The world is changing fast. In every corner of the globe, the power dynamics are shifting, and the two giants that stand at the center of this change are the United States and China. Over the past few decades, China's rise has been nothing short of remarkable. From a nation once struggling with poverty and isolation, China has now transformed into a global economic and military powerhouse. This transformation has triggered a series of responses from the United States, which views China's growing influence as a direct challenge to its own dominance on the world stage. The battle for dominance between these two superpowers is not just about economics or military power. It's a battle for the very future of global leadership. The United States has always held the position of global leader. After World War II, it became the unchallenged economic and military superpower, shaping global policies, trade agreements, and defense alliances. However, as China has grown stronger economically, militarily, and politically, the U.S. has had to rethink its strategies and tactics to maintain its place at the top. The key question is, how is the United States countering China's rise, and what strategies are being employed in this battle for global dominance? To understand the American strategy to counter China, it's important to first look at China's rise. Since the 1970s, China has experienced a rapid transformation. Its economy has boomed, lifting hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, and it has established itself as the world's second-largest economy, second only to the US, but China's ambitions don't stop there. Its military has also grown in power, and its influence on global institutions, such as the United Nations, World Trade Organization, and World Health Organization, has expanded. The centerpiece of China's global ambition is the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, a massive infrastructure project that spans the globe, investing in ports, roads, railways, and other critical infrastructure in countries across Asia, Africa, and Europe. Through the BRI, China is not just building infrastructure, it is building influence, creating dependencies, and expanding its power on a global scale. But the United States isn't sitting idle. It recognizes that China's rise is not just a challenge to its own economic dominance, but also a challenge to the liberal international order that the U.S. helped create after World War II. In response, the U.S. has adopted a multifaceted strategy that includes economic pressure, military alliances, technological advancements, and a focus on strengthening its leadership within global institutions. One of the first and most visible aspects of the U.S. strategy to counter China's rise is economic pressure. Over the past few years, the U.S. has engaged in a trade war with China, imposing tariffs on billions of dollars of Chinese goods. The goal of these tariffs is to force China to adhere to fair trade practices, reduce its trade surplus with the U.S., and stop intellectual property theft. The trade war has been a central component of U.S. strategy, aiming to slow China's economic growth and limit its ability to expand its influence through trade and investment. At the same time, the United States has also been leveraging its position in global financial institutions to counter China. The U.S. has used its influence in organizations like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank to limit China's access to loans and financing. This economic strategy is designed to weaken China's ability to project power through its economic influence. But the economic pressure isn't limited to tariffs and financial institutions. The U.S. has also been pressuring countries to limit their engagement with China, particularly when it comes to Chinese technology companies like Huawei. The U.S. has accused Huawei of spying on behalf of the Chinese government and has worked tirelessly to convince other countries to block Huawei's 5G technology from being used in their networks. This move is part of a broader U.S. effort to maintain its technological edge and prevent China from becoming a leader in the next generation of telecommunications. Another key aspect of the U.S. strategy is military deterrence. The United States has long maintained a military presence in the Asia-Pacific region, with bases in Japan, South Korea, and Guam, as well as a strong naval fleet in the South China Sea. The U.S. Navy's presence in the South China Sea is a clear message to China that the U.S. will not allow China to dominate the region and challenge the freedom of navigation. China has been constructing artificial islands and military installations in the South China Sea, a region rich in natural resources and vital shipping lanes. The U.S. has consistently challenged China's territorial claims in the South China Sea, conducting freedom of navigation operations, FONOPs, to ensure that the sea remains open to all nations. In addition to its direct military presence, the U.S. has been strengthening its alliances and partnerships in the region. One of the key elements of this strategy is the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, Quad, a strategic alliance between the US, Japan, India, and Australia. The Quad is aimed at countering China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific region and ensuring that China's ambitions do not go unchecked. The US has also deepened its military ties with other countries in the region, including South Korea, the Philippines, and Vietnam, all of which are wary of China's growing power. But military strength alone is not enough to counter China's rise. The US understands that China's soft power, its ability to influence countries through cultural, economic, and diplomatic means, must also be addressed. To this end, the US has been working to strengthen its position in international institutions and alliances. Through organizations like the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and the World Health Organization, the US is working to maintain its leadership role and ensure that China does not gain undue influence. This has included efforts to limit China's power within the United Nations, particularly in areas like human rights and international security. The US has also been pushing back against China's efforts to create a parallel global governance system through initiatives like the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, which competes with institutions like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. On the diplomatic front, the United States has been working to counter China's growing influence through partnerships with countries that are increasingly finding themselves at odds with China. In recent years, the US has deepened its relationships with European countries, Japan, and South Korea, all of which share concerns about China's growing economic and military power. By working together, these nations can present a united front in dealing with China, whether in trade negotiations, military issues, or international diplomacy. One of the most significant areas where the US is focused is the competition for technological supremacy. China has made huge strides in technology, especially in areas like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and telecommunications. The US has responded by heavily investing in its own technological industries, particularly in AI and 5G. The US government has provided substantial funding for research and development in these areas and has placed increasing pressure on American tech companies to maintain their technological leadership. At the same time, the US has been working to limit China's access to cutting-edge technologies, especially through export controls on advanced semiconductor chips and other critical technologies. The race for technological supremacy is one of the defining features of the battle between the US and China, as the country that leads in technology will have a significant edge in economic and military power. The United States' strategy to counter China's global influence is multifaceted and involves a combination of economic pressure, military strength, diplomatic alliances, and technological competition. This battle for dominance is not just about the US and China. It is about shaping the future of the global order. The US wants to ensure that China does not replace it as the world's leading superpower, and it is willing to use all the tools at its disposal to maintain its position. But China, for its part, is determined to challenge the US and reshape the global order in its own image. The next few decades will determine the outcome of this struggle for dominance, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The world is watching, and the battle for global leadership is far from over.